House prices have just gone into the stratosphere. The average home in the UK costs 9 times the average person's annual salary. Land called the Greenbelts, which are protected from almost any development. The really tricky part is political. Right now, the average home in the UK costs 9 times the average person's annual salary. Just let that sink in for a second. To buy a totally average house, you would need 9 years of your entire income before tax. It's wild. And this isn't some brand new problem, but the scale of it is definitely new. To put it in perspective, if we rewind back to 1997, that same ratio was only about 3.5 times your earnings. So the jump from 3.5 to 9 in just a couple of decades, that is one of the most dramatic economic shifts in modern British history, for sure. It's the result of decades of decisions, huge economic forces, and all sorts of policy choices that were all kind of pulling in the same direction. To really understand it, we need to break it all down. For decades, the UK has had a really simple problem. Way more people have wanted a home than the number of actual homes available. Let's just look at the numbers for a second. The experts reckon the UK needs to build around 250,000 new homes every single year just to keep up. But as you can see here, we have consistently missed that target by a mile. Take 2013, for instance. Only about 135,000 homes were finished. And this isn't a one-off. It's a chronic, decades-long failure to build. And when you have a persistent shortage of anything, well, the price inevitably goes up. So, why aren't we building enough? Well, it's complicated. The UK has some of the strictest, most complex planning laws in the entire world. Then you've got huge areas of land called the Greenbelts, which are protected from almost any development. And maybe the biggest hurdle of all, existing homeowners often fight tooth and nail to stop new developments in their area, because they're worried it could lower the value of their own property. It's that classic, not in my backyard problem. So at the same time supply has been squeezed, demand has just been supercharged. The UK population is growing. More and more people are living by themselves, which means we need more total households. Property has become a hugely popular investment through the buy-to-let market. And on top of all of that, UK property, especially in cities like London, has become this go-to safe haven asset for foreign investors from all over the world. And to put a number on just how big that global demand is, some research from King's College London found that between the years 2000 and 2014, foreign investment alone pushed up house prices in England and Wales by a massive 19%. Think about that. Without it, prices would be nearly a fifth lower than they are. But, a simple supply and demand story doesn't quite capture the full picture. Not even close. Let's move on to what many economists now think is the single biggest driver of these crazy high house prices, the era of incredibly cheap money. Just look at this chart. In the early 1990s, the Bank of England's base interest rate was hovering around a painful 15%. But then, after the 2008 financial crisis, it was slashed to historic lows, and it stayed below 1% for over a decade. This made borrowing money, specifically for a mortgage, cheaper than at pretty much any other point in history. And when it's cheaper to borrow, people can afford to borrow more, which just bids up the price of the very things they're trying to buy. And the crucial point here is just how massive this effect has been. This quote from a Bank of England staff paper is just stunning. They found that the fall in interest rates all by itself is powerful enough to explain the entire increase in that house price-to-income ratio we saw at the start. That's a huge deal. It suggests that while the lack of supply is a problem, the financial environment has been the real rocket fuel. Okay, so we have a supply shortage, and we have incredibly cheap money. The third and final ingredient in this perfect storm is government policy. For the last 40 years or so, government after government has launched these big schemes designed to help people buy homes. The problem? Almost all of them focused on boosting demand, which was kind of like pouring gasoline on an already raging fire. This timeline really shows how these policy decisions just built on each other over the decades. In the 80s, Right to Buy sold off a huge amount of social housing, but they never really replaced it. Then in 1996, new types of mortgages made buy-to-let investing way easier. Then you get to 2013, and the Help to Buy scheme gave buyers government loans, again increasing the number of people competing for the same limited stock of homes. Even the stamp duty holiday during the pandemic created a buying frenzy, causing an 8.5% price spike. Each policy on its own was meant to help. But when you look at them all together, they just consistently pumped up demand without ever fixing the underlying supply problem. So given this perfect storm of low supply, high demand, cheap money, and government policy, Is there any way out of this crisis? Well, the good news is there are actually plenty of proposed solutions out there. The big one is pretty obvious: build more homes, probably by radically simplifying the whole planning system. We could also focus on making renting a more stable and attractive long-term option, like it is in a lot of European countries. A massive new investment in public and social housing is another key idea. We could even learn from countries like Japan, which has a much more flexible zoning system that allows for really rapid construction. What we need to do isn't really a mystery. The real problem, the really tricky part, is political. Because while unaffordable housing is a total disaster for renters and first-time buyers, high house prices have created immense wealth for the millions of people who already own their homes. So any policy that actually succeeded in bringing prices down would effectively be making the largest and most reliable group of voters poorer. And that, right there, is a very, very difficult thing for any politician to do. Which leaves us with this final, really difficult question. We know the potential solutions, we know what it would take to make housing more affordable for more people. But getting there means someone, somewhere, has to lose out. So the question isn't really about economics anymore. It's about who we, as a country, decide should be the one to bear the cost of fixing this crisis.